Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at Season 3 of Lost. So Season 3 picks up where Season 2 left off and focuses largely on the conflict between Jack's group and the others, which was revealed to have been led this whole time by Benjamin Linus. Season 3 was yet another solid entry in the series overall, and is what I consider to be the show's last traditional season. Because after this, everything changes. You know, it's the last season to have 20 plus episodes, in this case 23, and it's also the last one to follow the typical storytelling format the show is known for, with most of the stories set on the island, with some flashbacks sprinkled in. And out of the first 3 seasons, this one is definitely my favorite. So let's get into it. So first of all, this season does in fact provide answers to some long-running questions and mysteries on the show. Not too many answers, mind you, but in a show that raises so many questions and yet provides very little answers, it's actually a bit of a relief for once. This season also fleshes out the others group a bit more and gives you a better understanding of them. As a result, Ben ends up getting a bit more backstory and development here, and as a result, you can't help but feel a little bit of sympathy for him despite the fact that he's pretty much the show's main villain at this point. Plus, some new characters are also introduced as a result, such as Juliet Buck, played by Elizabeth Mitchell, who you might recognize from the Santa Claus film starring Tim Allen and The Purge election year, and TV shows such as ER, Once Upon a Time, The Expanse, and Outer Banks. Juliet has been assigned by Ben to watch over and interrogate Jack, who, along with a couple of other characters, has been captured by the others. And despite which side of the scale she's on, I honestly consider her to be my favorite female character, given how her relationships with various characters play out all throughout the show. There's also Richard Alpert, played by Nestor Carbonell, and despite being initially introduced as a bioscience doctor, he's kind of a mystery character. Half the time you'll be wondering if he really is who he makes himself out to be, or if he's got some kind of secret. Another thing worth mentioning is that because the writers were finally given permission to have an endpoint for the show, you'll start to feel the pace pick up a little bit in the second half, specifically in the last 9 episodes. Granted, there's still going to be some flashbacks, but the overall experience will become less frustrating. And this would also explain why the later seasons are also much faster paced. And as for the finale, to be honest, this was my second favorite finale out of all of the finales on this show. Not just because it was intense and emotional at the same time, but it does something that no other episode in the show had done at that point in time, and it had serious implications not just for the characters, but for the show's use of non-linear storytelling. Now, my biggest issue with Season 3 is the fact that the first 14 episodes, more or less, are a bit rough around the edges to say the least. Some characters don't get a whole lot of screen time. The flashbacks were really starting to grind my gears for the most part. I mean, there's one episode featuring flashbacks of how Jack got his tattoos. And sure, Bai Ling was in it, but you have to ask yourself, was this really necessary? And it was only made worse by the inclusion of Nikki and Paolo. Now, Nikki and Paolo are the show's most universally despised characters. Why? Well, because they honestly didn't really amount to much. I get why they exist in the first place, because apparently there were complaints from audiences that the show was focusing on the same 15 or so characters over and over again. And considering how many extras are actually on this show, it kind of made sense to focus on other characters. But it makes their initial appearance in the very first episode all the more jarring, because supposedly they've been on the island this whole time and only now are they becoming somewhat of a focus. Plus, they really weren't all that helpful to the other survivors, and until we got to a certain point in time in the season, they really weren't all that interesting. That being said, I don't hate them as much as everyone else does, but I still think there was a lot of wasted potential with them. You know, I think their backstory is pretty cool, and it's not as if they ever did anything to actively endanger the group. In fact, they didn't do anything to actively tick me off either, so I get what the fuss was all about, but I think the fans were a bit too harsh. And at the very least, they weren't a major focus of the show in the long run, so there's that.
So yeah, those are my thoughts on Season 3 of Lost. Next time we're going to be looking at Season 4. So thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like the video, share it, and subscribe. Ring the bell. Take care, and I'll see you soon.